one host agent, there is one user SAP ADM. So which is already there in this machine, that's why it's not showing again. But every database will have its own SID ADM user. Every database will have its own system user. Host agent user is common irrespective of number of databases you are going to have on that same host, like that. So provide the passwords, that's it. You can start the installation. So this installation will be finished. It will take hardly 10 minutes, nothing more than that. And another thing also which I explained yesterday, if you recollect what we have discussed yesterday, I explained you the concept of the single container and multiple containers. So here, as we are installing the new version, that is 2.0 SPS 3, it doesn't ask you anything like that, because default your database is multi-tenant database. It is a multi-tenant database. So if it's older versions, it will ask you, you can choose whether you want to go with single or multi. You can decide on that. Now, after this installation here, you end up with one system DB, one tenant database, having same SIDs. And depending on our requirements, we can add some more tenant databases later on, like that. So this is the procedure, what usually you'll be following whenever it comes to the installation. So getting the right kind of media, preparing your operating system, and then installing it. If it's a TDA scenario, in case if it is a appliance model, hardware vendors, they install and they'll give it to you. So once you receive an appliance with HANA database pre-installed there, what you can do is you can do some changes for that. Like usually for security reasons, you modify those passwords and all that. But the most important thing is we can change SID, we can change instance number, we can also change the host names. So there is a rename facility SAP is offering to you. Again, using database lifecycle management, HANA database lifecycle management tools. So they can use it and they can make those changes. That's very important. If they are doing installation on their own, it's okay. I mean, they can provide all the details like this. Because that's as far as server is concerned. But now, coming to the tools part, the interfaces. Here, the first and foremost thing is Hana Studio. Very important one, because right from the beginning, SAP is using this extensively, Hana Studio, the graphical tool. So this is a tool which can be used for performing different activities. See, Hana Studio can be used for administration. You can perform administration activities, like you can do some configurations, we can take backups, we can perform recoveries, we can take care of security, all these things, monitoring we can perform. So using Hana Studio, we can perform administration, we can do modeling. Modeling means the models which are required for analytics in a data mart scenario. So you can build the models there. You can also develop applications. If they want to develop some application on top of Access Engine, they can do those developments using this Hana Studio. So that's a tool which can be used for multiple activities. It purely depends on their roles and responsibilities. So this tool need to be installed in the client workstation. It's not just one workstation. In each client workstation, they need to install it. And for that, again, software is available in that same media. So if you go to these data units, you can find Hana Studio here. And that too, this Hana Studio software is provided for Windows operating system, Linux is there, Mac is also there. So depending on that operating system you have in the client workstation, you just need to install. Installation is pretty simple. There is a simple setup file available here. That is HDB setup. Just run that HDB setup and install it. Just only a matter of 2 minutes that installation will be completed. So apart from this Hana Studio, when it comes to, see, now I want to connect to the database, not only from Hana Studio, maybe I want to use MS Excel as a reporting tool. So I have Excel installed here. I want to connect to the database and build some reports by accessing those modules. Even that, if you want to do, you can't directly connect to the database. If you want to connect to the database, you need drivers. It's not just HANA, any database need drivers, like Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, anything. So what SAP has done is those drivers required to communicate with your HANA database, they provided in a small software here called HANA Clients. See, the HANA Client software they're given for multiple operating systems. So suppose you want to install it for Windows, you can just go here and run this HDB setup and install it. So you must install HANA Client also here in this workstation. So make sure that you have those drivers available, and then you can connect to the database if it's already installed, and you can start performing those activities, maybe administration, modeling, development, whatever it is. So let us see as this installation is going on here. Yeah, it's almost finished. So let us see how we can connect to this database from the HANA Studio. So to do that, once HANA Studio is installed in the client workstation, let's open this, launch this HANA Studio. One important thing, if you observe here, what is showing you here is Eclipse. When I'm launching HANA Studio, it's showing that it's Eclipse Launcher. The reason why it's showing that Eclipse Launcher is actually the underlying software you have for this HANA Studio is Eclipse only. What SAP has done is they've taken Eclipse, on top of Eclipse they have installed some add-ons, and that they've provided as HANA Studio for you. So the base platform is Eclipse here. And you know that it's not new for SAP using Eclipse. SAP started using Eclipse way back. In 2004 when SAP came up with NetWeaver. So part of that NetWeaver platform, some applications were developed using Java. So when they want to have a proper IDE tool, they started using Eclipse at that time. The same thing they did in 2004 also. They've taken Eclipse, they added small add-ons, and they've introduced it as NetWeaver Developer Studio, NWDS. So similarly, here also same thing. They've taken Eclipse, they added some simple add-ons, and that they termed it as HANA Studio. That's why you can see that Eclipse there, which is an open source. So once you launch this, in the meanwhile, you can see this HANA database system installed. That's done successfully. So once you launch this HANA Studio, look at this. This is the HANA Studio tool, a graphical tool. But what you have to do is when we come to this HANA Studio, depending on your role, depending on your job, depending on your activity, you have to choose something called perspectives. Suppose you want to perform administration activities, you need to work in the administration perspective. If someone is responsible for modeling, they need to work in the modeler perspective. If another person is responsible for development of applications, you need to work in the development perspective, like that. So if you look at this on the right top corner, stream corner, you can find perspectives here, HANA Administration Console, HANA Modeler, like this. Otherwise, if you go to this menu here, window, perspective, open perspective, here if you click on other, the list comes. Not only modeler, development, administration, there's a list of perspectives will be displayed. That includes even Java also, because underlying Eclipse you have. So what actually happens is, depending on the perspective we are selecting here, the layout changes. Actually, the modeler perspective layout is like this. This is modular perspective layout. If I switch to administration perspective, the layout changes again. The views, what it shows you, will change. Means those specific options are meant for that particular perspective. The advantage you have like this is this simplifies your working environment. That's why they're given options like this. So suppose you're an administrator, you'll be working in this administration console. But now, apart from this, I mean, default, you'll be getting HANA related perspectives like HANA administration console, development, modeling, and something like, plan visualizer, these kind of things. But one more thing, if you can observe here, when I'm looking at the perspectives, it's also showing perspectives like ABAP, BW modeling like this. See, you might have seen this. Suppose you are working with the new versions of SAP applications. Like example, if you have SAP HANA, if you go to your data warehousing ABAP development workbench, SEAT transaction. If you go to the ABAP development workbench, you can see a clear message. What they're stating there is they're asking you to use Eclipse environment for ABAP development. So ABAP developments you can perform here itself. Similarly, the new versions of BW, like BW 7.4 SP8 and above versions, some specific objects, BW objects, you cannot develop by using data warehousing workbench, RSA1 transaction. So they must be developed by using Eclipse environment only. So that's why even these options also provided, but you don't get them default. Don't expect ABAP development, BW modeling options here. These perspectives you'll be getting only when you install some additional software. So if needed, you can also do that just by using a simple option here, install new software, and online you can access using this URL like this. So if they want ABAP development tools, they can select and install. BW modeling, they can select and install. UI developments, they can select and install, whatever they need. HANA tools already we have. Cloud also facilities are there. So actually, SAP want to project this as a development tool. The future of SAP developments is Eclipse based. So SAP want to project this as a development tool, not as an administration tool. Even though we are allowed to perform administration activities, SAP doesn't want to continue with this HANA Studio for administration activities. So that's the reason why SAP is projecting HANA Cockpit a lot. You can see HANA Cockpit here, and that's what we are going to use for administration. So at this point of time, HANA Studio is still there. It's deprecated, but it's not obsolete. It's deprecated, but you're always recommended to use HANA Cockpit. But still, there is a need of HANA Studio because there are some selected activities which you can perform by using only HANA Studio, which can't be done by using Cockpit. Cockpit is relatively new. We'll discuss on that. The significance of Cockpit also we'll see. Okay, now, once we have this HANA Studio installed, and once you launch it, because you have already database server installed and running, now let us see how we can connect to the database server. So I'm going to show you both single container and multi-container databases, both of them. So I have a single container database on one host here, this host, and multi-container which we installed now. So let us see how we can connect to those two databases. So to do this, in this HANA Studio on the left side, you can see something called Systems View. There you can just click on this Add System button. Otherwise, in this area, you can just go to the context menu, click